My fiancé used my savings to buy her ex a new car. He deserves it more. At least he's a real man, not a pathetic provider like you, she whispered. I stayed silent until the day she woke up to an eviction notice and a debt she never saw coming. They say love is blind. I used to think that was just a dramatic saying, something people told themselves to justify their bad relationships. But now I know just how real it is. For years, I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. Vanessa was drop-dead gorgeous. The kind of woman who could walk into a room and make heads turn without even trying. Long, flowing hair, a model-like figure, and the confidence of someone who knew she was the most attractive person in any setting. And me? Well, let's just say I wasn't the guy women fantasized about. I was average at best, below average if you ask Vanessa. I wasn't ugly, but I wasn't the guy people stopped to admire. I was a little too skinny, a little too nerdy. My glasses made me look boring according to Vanessa, and my preference for quiet nights and instead of partying made me too predictable. But somehow I landed her, or at least that's what I told myself. I had spent 4 years in a relationship where I was constantly reminded that I should be grateful to have her. Whenever I did something nice for her, see, I'm making you a better boyfriend. If I ever brought up something that bothered me, you should just be happy I chose you. When her friends made jokes at my expense, she laughed along. But the thing is, I was grateful. I thought she was out of my league, and I had convinced myself that if I wanted to keep her, I needed to accept her flaws. It wasn't until much later that I realized they weren't flaws. They were red flags. Things started to shift a few months before everything fell apart. Vanessa had always been a shopaholic, but suddenly she was spending even more. She started going on spa days more frequently, wearing expensive new dresses, and carrying designer bags. I didn't think much of it at first. I made decent money, and she always had an excuse. It was on sale. I just needed a little self-care, babe. Don't worry. I used my own money. But her job wasn't enough to afford half of what she was buying. The real red flag, her sudden change in attitude toward money. Vanessa used to nag me about saving. Now, she scoffed when I suggested budgeting. She rolled her eyes whenever I mentioned cutting back on expenses. She started saying things like, "You can always make more money. Stop acting broke." That line, it should have been a warning, but I ignored it because love is blind. I still remember the exact moment my world flipped upside down. It was a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from work exhausted, ready to collapse on the couch. But Vanessa, she was on the phone. She was standing by the kitchen counter, her voice soft, almost teasing. "Yeah, babe. It's already handled. You deserve it more than anyone. At least you're a real man, not a pathetic provider like him." I froze. Did I just hear that right? I must have misheard. She turned around, noticed me standing there, and immediately her entire demeanor shifted. She hung up the call, tossed her phone on the counter, and smiled. "Oh, hey, babe. You're home early." I couldn't even process a response. "Who were you talking to?" She hesitated just for a fraction of a second. Then she rolled her eyes. "Relax. It was just Claire. We were talking about wedding plans." Wedding plans. I knew she was lying. My heart pounded in my chest, but I couldn't react. Not yet. I needed to see for myself. That night, I waited until Vanessa fell asleep. When she was out cold, I reached for her hand, pressed her thumb to her phone's fingerprint scanner, and unlocked it. What I found shattered me. Months of messages, flirty texts, romantic messages, secret rendezvous, receipts from fancy restaurants I had never been to, hotel bookings on weekends she claimed to be at girls' trips, and the worst, a $22,000 payment to a car dealership with her ex's name as the registered owner. She had used our wedding savings to buy her ex a new car. My hands shook as I scrolled. "You're the only one I've ever truly loved. I'm just waiting for the right time to leave him. He's just a stepping stone. He's lucky I even let him be with me this long." I clenched my fists, feeling my pulse in my ears, but I didn't get angry. I didn't wake her up and scream. I just smiled because Vanessa thought she had won. She thought she had played me for a fool. But what she didn't know, I was about to make sure she paid for every single cent she stole. And by the time I was done, she'd be the one left broke, alone, and begging for my help. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't even let her know that I knew because Vanessa had spent years gaslighting me. Now, it was my turn. She thought she was in control. She thought I was a clueless, desperate fiancé who would never dare to leave her, so I played the role perfectly. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. I still paid for dinner. I even let her talk about wedding plans as if she hadn't just thrown our future away for her ex. But behind the scenes, I was dismantling her entire world piece by piece. Vanessa had always been terrible with money. The only reason she lived the lifestyle she did was because I funded it. That was about to change. I started forgetting to pay for things. Hey babe, can you cover dinner tonight? My card's acting up. Can you handle the utility bill this month? I'm tied up with some other expenses. Mind using your card for the groceries? I left my wallet at work. At first, she didn't complain. She liked the idea of being in control, of proving she didn't need me financially, but then I started letting her take over bigger expenses. The rent. Babe, I need a little help this month. You've been shopping a lot. I figured you'd be okay covering it. Her credit card payments. Can you handle your own bills this time? I'm saving for something important. At first, she rolled her eyes, but agreed. But as the months went on, her spending habits caught up to her. She wasn't just burning through our wedding savings, she was burning through her own money too. And the best part, she had no idea I was systematically pulling my finances away from her. I wasn't just draining her money. I was gathering evidence. I made sure to keep every receipt, every bank statement, and every recorded conversation where she admitted to spending my money. She loved to mock me to her friends, and I used it to my advantage. One night, I accidentally left my phone recording while she was on a call. Vanessa. I don't even know why I'm still with him. He's so boring, but hey, at least his wallet's fun. A friend. Girl, you're ruthless. It's not my fault he's too dumb to realize I'm using him. I saved that recording because Vanessa didn't know it yet, but she was about to pay for every word. This was where the real fun began. I started laying financial traps that she'd never see coming. I pulled my name from our joint accounts. She didn't notice because she was too busy spending. I stopped paying for the car lease that was in her name. The one she used my savings for. I had the engagement ring appraised, then quietly sold it. She'd find out soon enough. I made sure all financial assets that were in my name were moved to private accounts. But the best part, I let her think she was still in control. The week before the wedding, Vanessa's world started collapsing. She received a notice in the mail. Her credit cards maxed out. Her apartment lease denied renewal. Her car payments, 3 months overdue. And the cherry on top, the bank called her about the wedding venue payment because I had made sure she was the sole signee on the contract. And when she realized she was legally responsible for $30,000 in wedding costs, she lost it. She stormed into our apartment, red-faced and furious. Marcus. What the hell is going on? The bank just called me. Where is all the money? I looked up from my laptop, completely unfazed. Oh, yeah. About that. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out the folder of receipts, recordings, and messages. I slid it across the table. Her eyes darted through every page. The credit card statements, the screenshots of her messages with her ex, the voice recording of her bragging about using me. By the time she reached the last page, her hands were shaking. You set me up. I leaned back in my chair smiling. No, Vanessa. You set yourself up. I just helped you realize it. She tried to argue, tried to gaslight me like she always did. But then I hit her with the final piece, a printed out email from my lawyer. It was a contract officially removing me from all financial obligations related to the wedding and our lease. She was stuck with everything. The debt, the unpaid bills, the lease, everything she had spent the last year enjoying at my expense. Now it was hers alone. And me, I was walking away completely debt-free. The final scene, the eviction party. I made sure her eviction date lined up perfectly with the weekend she had planned for her wedding. So instead of walking down the aisle, she was walking out of my apartment with garbage bags full of her stuff. And to make it even sweeter, I invited all her closest friends over for a celebration. But instead of a wedding reception, they arrived just in time to see Vanessa getting escorted out by the building manager for unpaid rent. Some filmed, others laughed. Vanessa, she was sobbing. And me, I just stood there watching the chaos unfold. Because for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't the fool in this relationship. Vanessa wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. The moment she realized her entire world had collapsed in on itself, she did what she always did. She tried to manipulate her way out of it. She didn't even bother packing properly. Instead, she stood there in the middle of the apartment, face red, eyes wild, hands trembling, staring at me like I was the villain in her life story. Marcus, baby, we can fix this. I almost laughed. Fix this. She had spent years using me, mocking me, stealing from me. And now that her lies had finally caught up to her, she thought she could crawl back. Not a chance. I crossed my arms leaning against the kitchen counter. Fix this. I echoed, tilting my head. How exactly you want me to magically pay off your debts? Cover your rent, pretend none of this happened. She blinked rapidly, searching for the right words. It was just a mistake. She tried. I wasn't thinking straight. You know, I love you. I let out a slow, deliberate sigh. Then, I pointed at the folder of receipts, messages, and financial records still sitting on the coffee table. You weren't thinking straight for an entire year. Silence. I watched her throat bob as she swallowed. That's when the tears started. Vanessa's greatest weapon, the same weapon she had used against me countless times. Marcus, please, she whimpered, eyes glistening. I don't have anywhere to go. I shrugged. Not my problem, she snapped. Like a switch had flipped, her entire demeanor shifted. You heartless piece of shit, she shrieked. You think you're better than me? You'll regret this. You can't just throw me out. But as she screamed, I simply walked to the door, opened it wide, and gestured toward the hallway. You're right, Vanessa. I can't throw you out. Then, right onto you. The building manager stepped in, holding the official eviction notice in one hand, and the 2 security guards standing behind him, ready to escort her out. Vanessa froze. She whipped around to glare at me, realization dawning on her face. You planned this. I smiled. Of course I did. And just like that, she was dragged out of my apartment, kicking, screaming, while I stood there watching her entire world burn to ash. Vanessa had one last hope. Her ex, the man she had thrown everything away for. She thought he would take her in. She thought he would comfort her, let her stay at his place, maybe even help her pay off the debts she had racked up. But she made one fatal miscalculation. He didn't actually give a damn about her. The moment she showed up at his place, bags in hand, he shut the door in her face. Turns out, he had never planned on being with her long term. He had just wanted the car she had bought him with my savings, and now, he didn't need her anymore. Vanessa had destroyed her entire life for nothing, and she was finally realizing it. Vanessa thought her suffering was over. She had no idea it was just beginning. See, while she had been scrambling to survive, I had been busy setting up the final part of my plan. Remember that wedding venue she booked? The one that cost $30,000? She still thought it was my problem. She still thought I'd have to deal with the cancellation fees, the contracts, the legal mess, until she got a call from the venue. Miss Vanessa, we're just confirming the final payment for your wedding this weekend. Her blood ran cold. What payment? The remaining balance, $18,500. As you know, the contract is in your name. She stammered, her voice shaking. But my fiancé was supposed to. Your name is the only one on the contract, ma'am. Payment is due by noon tomorrow. Click. That's when she realized she was trapped in debt. Thousands of dollars of debt with no way out. No job, no savings, no one left to manipulate. She was alone. And me, I was watching from a distance, debt-free, happy, and completely at peace. It took exactly 4 days before my phone exploded with calls and messages. 24 missed calls, 37 desperate texts, all from Vanessa. Marcus, please. I messed up. I don't have anywhere to go. Can we just talk? I know I made mistakes, but you can't just abandon me. I need you. I let the messages pile up. Then finally, I sent my only response. A single text. You said I wasn't good enough for you. Right. Good. Because now you're not even worth my time. Blocked. Forever. Vanessa tried to go to her parents, but they refused to take her back. She tried to move in with friends, but no one wanted to deal with her debts. She ended up couch surfing, struggling to find a way to pay off the mess she created. And me, I thrived debt-free, finally free. And best of all, knowing that Vanessa was out there suffering the most expensive lesson of her life.